Thank you for joining us in another episode of Angie Speaks, Stronger Than Splinters, where we are determined, dogged, and deliberate about becoming the next best version of ourselves. In this episode of Clarity in Crisis, our focus will be self-forgiveness. And with us is our esteemed guest, Dr. Gloria Brown, whose 20 years as a psychotherapist and a life coach will give us some juicy nuggets to help us to forgive ourselves. So welcome and thank you for joining us, Dr. Brown. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this episode.
Me too, because we need to forgive ourselves. Drop the burden, the load that so many of us are walking around with. Thank you for joining us, whether you're in the live broadcast or on the replay. We'd love to hear your questions and your input as we engage in this robust conversation. So Dr. Brown, let's jump into it. Why is it so important that we forgive ourselves?
So that we don't spend our life burdened, miserable, and unable to connect with people who are important to us and who we love.
And who we love. So would you say it's more important, it's easier to forgive others than to forgive ourselves?
I think it's equally hard.
Equally hard?
But it's almost impossible to forgive other people unless you've experienced forgiveness yourself.
It's hard, almost impossible to forgive other people unless I've forgiven myself. But you know what I've experienced, that most times when people say you need to forgive, they're really referring to the fact that I need to forgive somebody else. Very rarely do I hear somebody say, forgive yourself. It's somewhat of a, I don't know if it's a new phenomenon, but it doesn't easily roll off the tongue for someone to say, forgive yourself. Give yourself a break. Show yourself some compassion. And yet it is the cornerstone if we're going to heal, aspire, and grow, and give birth to the next best version of ourselves. Isn't that correct?
Yes, I think one of the reasons why it's hard to forgive ourselves is because most of the time we don't think we need forgiveness. We think we are right. We're absolutely we're absolutely convinced that our is the absolute right opinion. And the reason for that is that there are parts of ourselves that we know, there are parts of ourselves that we know and we share with other people, but there are parts of us that other people know about us that we don't know. And there's parts of us that we or other people don't know, only God knows. And so
are you saying that a lack of self-forgiveness can come from a place of self-righteousness? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think forgiveness can come from lots of things. But what I'm saying to you is that people aren't often aware of it because they don't know. But it comes to them, messages come to them from other people who are unhappy or feel loved or accepted by their behaviors. And so when we find ourselves in a position where the people who are important in our lives or the people who love us are saying, hey, I'm not getting what I need from you, that usually, if we're caring people, that usually forces us to begin examining ourselves. And if we want a thorough examination, that we need to engage in someone who has expertise in that area.
So you're saying the first step then, which seems to be an ongoing theme in our series, Clarity in Crisis, that I have to be aware of the fact that I have not forgiven myself. And this this process of awareness is critical, because if not, I can't change. I saw a quote recently. It says, awareness is like the sun. When it shines on things, it transforms us. I saw another one that says, awareness is the greatest agent for change. So you're saying, based on your experience, that we have to be aware of the lack of forgiveness that we have for ourselves. So then tell me, what are the symptoms that someone can look out for to be able to determine whether or not they have not forgiven themselves? Because sometimes we don't necessarily know what the symptoms are, which is a big problem.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think one of the best ways to begin looking at how you feel about yourself is to listen to what you tell yourself. And a lot of people refer to that as self-talk. You know, in your difficult times, what are you saying? Are you saying, I'm okay, this situation is difficult, I don't understand it, but I'm going to find a way to get through it. And if I need help, I'm going to get help to get through it. I'm going to be open. If I get help, I'm going to be open to hearing what other people say, whether it feels good or not. Or do you withdraw and say things like, oh, I'm stupid. Or see, that happened again, because you know what, really, I don't deserve to have things. And these are people tell us early on in life that we believe, some of us believe. They're often referred to as limited beliefs.
Limiting beliefs. So you're saying that the symptoms show up in our self-talk. So I'm not necessarily going to say, Angela, you need to forgive yourself. What I'm going to see is, I can't do this, I will never be that, I'm not good enough, I accept relationships that treat me like dirt. It's the behavior along with the self-talk that says, you need to forgive yourself. Wow. So I saw, you know, and here's something that we can say to ourselves, something that I saw recently. It says, and I think it's a good affirmation. It says, I forgive myself for having believed for so long that I was never good enough to have, be, and get what I wanted. And I think that's so appropriate if we're going to really transform. I know I had to do it for myself, to believe that I can live beyond my splinter, that I didn't have to stay anxious, apprehensive, feeling like I can't do anything or become anything, that I can forgive myself and start believing that's possible, what's possible for me, so I can give birth to the next best version of myself over and over again, which is really a continuous process, giving birth to the next best version of ourselves. So I would encourage your audience to adapt that, to say to yourself, I forgive myself for having believed for so long that I was never enough to have, get, and be what I wanted. I think that is so powerful. The symptoms definitely tells the story by how we talk to ourselves and how we treat ourselves. So Dr. Brown, would you tell me and give me an example in your own life of how you suffered or endured a lack of forgiveness, self-forgiveness? Because you're telling me that in order to forgive other people, I have to forgive myself. So in what instance, give me a juicy story, in other words.
Well, okay. I'm going to give
juicy stories.
I'm going to give you a story in which I had to become aware of the need to forgive myself. And the story begins with my oldest son. When he was going into high school, I decided that I wanted him to go into the best possible high school, which is a good thing. Okay, but Bronx High School of Science. And
High School of Science. Okay.
was reluctant to go there.
Okay.
Now, I was focused on what I thought was the important thing, which was get in there, get the skills, and and then go on with your life. Now, one of his teachers said to me, "Hey, I don't think that he's ready to go to school this year. I think that you should let him go the following year." And at that time, he was in a ghetto school, more or less, for the bright, And I thought, I'm not listening to you. I want my son out of this place and onto a better life. I knew that he was intellectually capable of keeping up. What I didn't realize was that he was going to face emotional issues that were way beyond his 14 years. Oh. He was to a school that was the top. And what comes with the top is what this society brings. And pretty basically at this point, even when I think about it, it's just a whole lot of evil. And what kind of evil? Racism.
What kind of what?
Evil.
Okay. Yeah, what kind of evil?
Racism.
Okay.
In other words, he was bright enough. He took that test and he passed. He had no help to get in there. He did very well. And my thought process was that, oh, well, he did well. They will accept him. What I didn't realize was the extent to which those people considered his color more than they considered his capabilities. And as a result of that, he had to suffer a lot of emotional abuse in that place. And even as he was talking to me, trying to tell me, I wasn't able to hear it.
So your issue was that you were not willing to listen to where he was emotionally, and so he impacted him in negative ways, even though intellectually he was more than capable because he proved it by passing a test. Your lack of self-forgiveness came in the fact that as a parent, you did not listen to your son who wasn't really happy in that environment, racially charged environment. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, what I had to do was I had to learn that there was a side that I wasn't seeing. There was an unknown that I did not take into consideration. And because I did not take that unknown into consideration, it caused him considerable grief. And for that, I felt sorry, deeply sorry, because that was not my intention.
So how did you manage to forgive yourself for the fact that you didn't listen to your son? Did he come to you and tell you that he felt like he wasn't listened to or that he didn't feel heard? Or did you just observe it as a parent?
Okay. I'm sure he came to me on many occasions, but I wasn't listening.
You weren't what?
Was not listening.
But you weren't listening. You're obtuse. You couldn't fathom. Why wouldn't you want to be in this great, awesome school, the Bronx School of Science? That's where the legends go. You just couldn't hear it, right?
Oh, I couldn't hear it because I was missing some information. Information that I was missing was that was not a nurturing environment, and that it was too much for a 14-year-old boy, black boy.
Right. So how did you manage to forgive yourself of being the parent that wasn't listening, who had your own agenda for him, but not considering what his needs were? How did you, what steps did you take to forgive yourself?
Well, that was during the same period of time that I was entering Columbia University. And I went through all that nonsense with that counselor who told me that she was going to make it her business to get me out because I came from the ghetto. I did not come from the proper upbringing. So I had I had my own issues as well as trying to help my sons survive. And if you remember last time, one of the way that I got out of having that woman put me out of the school was to recognize that I needed to go and get help. And I said, which was true, I was making an adjustment from military life to civilian life. The dean accepted my explanation, so I did go to therapy. And while I was in therapy, many issues came up, and that was one of them. And well, how did that happen? So I went to therapy basically to stay in the school. I wasn't absolutely convinced that I had issues, although my manager, my former manager, mentioned it, and he was very kind to me because he's the one that pushed me to go to Columbia.
So sometimes people will be telling you that you have issues. They're trying to help you to get aware, and you weren't listening to that either. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it was a problem. It is. Many people have. They don't listen.
Not listening is so important.
Their idea, and they just go with it. I did anyway.
It takes humility to listen, honestly.
Yes.
I found that when I don't listen, it's because I'm just so full of it, really. Think I got it, all the answers. It's an arrogance. That's what it is.
Well, I tell you this, I think it could be arrogance, but it also could be other things. Meaning that if, let's say, I'll speak for myself because that's easier. I grew up in a home where my step-parents were not that nurturing. And they were not forgiving of mistakes. I had the feeling that I had to be perfect. I had to do everything right. And I tried to do everything right to gain their love. I didn't realize that they were the ones with the problem. You know, as a child, you don't understand these things. You want the love of your parent. And if your parent tells you you have to jump to 10 things, then you try to jump to it, whether or not it's reasonable. And so mistakes were not forgiving for me. And as a result, it was hard for me to think about the fact that I would make a mistake.
So you're saying then, if you grow up not feeling forgiven, it's hard for you to forgive yourself, much less other people.
You don't think you deserve it because that's what you've been told.
Wow.
Whether verbally or through actions. You know, if you value me, you take the time to listen to me and you take my feelings into consideration.
Right.
Not in that kind of an environment. So it's constantly a question of survival. And so to say that I made a mistake meant that, in my mind, meant that I was risking the possibility of not being able to survive.
Wow. To say you made a mistake was risking the possibility that you would not survive.
Well, let me give you an example.
Okay.
So I grew up, I told you, in a very dysfunctional home. And my stepfather, who was an alcoholic, when he went off into his crazy things, he would verbally attack me. And he would, of course, any little kid is going to make a mistake. That's what kids do. Parents are supposed to be there to help you and get through it. But he would say to me, like, well, if you do that again, we're going to send you to the orphanage or something like that. You see, my mother died early, and my father wasn't around. And so he was a very emotionally and otherwise abusive person. So growing up in an environment like that makes it hard to look at mistakes and to accept mistakes versus an environment in which when you made a mistake, you know, your parents came and they hugged you and they talked to you and they soothed you through. Basically, your self-esteem isn't attacked.
Right. And that is so important because I grew up like that. Where if I broke a mug, I'd be slapped into next week. My children break stuff now, and my husband and I just look at them and go, "Oh, it's okay. People make mistakes. It's okay. It's no big deal." And so now they'll break stuff and be like, "It's no big deal." And I'm thinking, no, they're really getting away with stuff. Because I grew up with, "Pal, you're too clumsy." You know what I mean? And so for the longest time, I believed I couldn't do anything because everything I tried to do wasn't going to work out because of the criticism and the harshness. And definitely the splinter, which I developed, or the scar, severe anxiety. So yeah, self-forgiveness really is so critical to our growth. And again, I always say this, use this term, to the ability to give birth, which is why our logo is a baby, because I believe that we are constantly having to work on ourselves to give birth to the best version of ourselves. So Dr. Brown, we have about 8 minutes left. I would like you to give people the steps to follow in order to practice self-forgiveness.
Okay. Well, the first thing I did was, once I became aware of it, I made an honest commitment to see. Once I became aware that I had a problem, I didn't know what the problem was, but I was committed to find out what the problem is. I think that's the first thing that we have to do. And that means that, you know, sometimes we have to speak to friends, trusted friends, or family members to get feedback if we suspect that, you know, we may be having a problem and that we're not aware of. Then once I found out I had a problem, I had to take responsibility for it. Yes, there were other people who were involved in it and did this and did that, but ultimately, I ended up accepting what these people said, and so I had to take responsibility for that. Then I made a commitment to honestly explore. Came up as a problem. You see, the fact that it comes up as a problem doesn't mean that I immediately accept it. It's like, oh, hell no, I don't think so, you know? But when you get past that part, you know, I start looking honestly at what's going on. And at that time, I mentioned I was already in therapy, so it helped that I had a professional person who I didn't always listen to, honestly, you know, because again, many times I thought I knew better. Doesn't make sense.
You were listening because you're obtuse, I remember. So the professional intervention is a critical component to this process of forgiving yourself, okay? But
it's not just professional intervention of a competent person who knows about it and who likes you. That's important.
The person needs to like you, okay.
And because then you will feel good and you will feel like you can trust them. You know, I could say everybody in this field really loves people, but it's like everything else. No, some people are here because it's a job and they do their job, but what happens when a little bit more is needed? Well, if someone cares for you, you will get that little extra more. It's important to know that that process of self-awareness is painful. That means it hurts.
Self-awareness is painful, y'all. You don't want to know.
If I'm there, I want to run away. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
Way. Many times when people are in therapy and they encounter situations that don't feel good, the first thing they say is, I don't like that therapist. I'm going somewhere else, or this stuff doesn't work and I'm out of here. Don't do that.
I've been guilty of that. Or what does that have to do with anything? What happened 10 years have to do with what I'm going through right now? Please, can we just deal with what's going on right now? I've actually behaved like that too. I have been guilty.
We all do. We all do.
Yeah.
So once you gain the insight and are going through the process of looking at things from different perspectives, what's going to happen is you're going to have that aha moment. Oh my God, you mean to tell me I have been doing this unnecessary thing, risking so many important things all my life? And then you get mad at yourself.
So, you get mad at yourself, and then you have to forgive yourself again for getting mad at yourself.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then not only do you have to forgive yourself, but you need to also, you will have to forgive all the other people who took part in that. You know, like my stepfather with his alcoholic issues, and my
a whole nother show. This one is to focus on forgiving yourself, which is so critical to the process. And then we have to focus on forgiving others. But this part comes first. Is that correct? So you forgive yourself and then you forgive others. We'll talk about forgiving others next week for sure. What's the next step after that?
Now, once you get your aha moment and you find out that you lost time, that's a big thing. You lost time.
Lack of self-forgiveness wastes time. You lose time.
It wastes opportunities. You lose relationships.
Lose relationships.
You lose all sorts of things. And so, to the extent that you've lost things and you're angry with yourself for losing those things, you have to go through the whole forgiveness process, which mainly really is letting go. Let it go. A lot of people think that forgiveness means that I have to accept what this person did to me, or I don't hold them accountable, or I have to keep being their friends. No, all it means is it's sort of like if you went to prison, if you went to for a judge and you were sentenced to go to prison and you went to prison, and let's say you were one of those people that were pardoned by the president. When you get pardoned, you don't deserve it. You just get it because someone has the goodwill to give it to you. So when you forgive the person, you're just forgiving the person out of goodwill, not because of anything that they've done to earn it. But what you do is you free yourself in that process. You no longer carry that heavy burden that they've imposed on you.
That load, like carrying around baggage or luggage. Was that the last nugget for forgiving self?
I combined it.
So you have to release others from the injuries that they have caused and release yourself from injuries that you have caused others. That's the point.
Now you're free to love, you see? And
that's the key.
You're free to love, to be loved, and to ignore the people who don't love you. They don't matter.
So self-forgiveness allows me to free myself. Free, and free who else? Free other people, and allow me to love.
And the main thing is it allows you to free yourself so that you can love other people and have the best possible life because you're living the best version of yourself.
That's the whole point, to live the best version of ourselves, to give birth to the possibility. Maybe you can now go get what you need to get the degree, get the husband, get the kids, get your relationship with God. Just go get it, get the thing, because you have forgiven yourself. I'm on that journey. I invite you to join us on that journey here at Angie Speaks, where we're striving to be stronger than our splinters. I saw another quote recently. It says, when you forgive yourself, when you forgive, you free yourself. But when you forgive others, you forgive two souls. Or when you say you're sorry, you forgive two souls. So definitely get on the journey to examine and become aware of whether or not you may be holding yourself hostage to unforgiveness, and decide to implement the steps that Dr. Brown shared with us to forgive ourselves. And join us in our group, Angie Speaks Stronger Than Splinters. And also you can sign up online for support with Dr. Brown for helping you to navigate the splinter during this crisis. Thank you for joining us today. And next week, we'll be doing part 2 of forgiveness, which is to forgive others. How do we forgive others? If you have questions, send them in advance. And remember, the whole point of this is to continue to help you to be stronger than your splinter. Have a great day, and we'll catch you in another episode of Angie Speaks next week. Thank you, Dr. Brown. I appreciate your time, and thank you for the juicy nuggets and stories. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.